Welcome to the Bourbon Case Files. I'm Nick, and I'm here with my partner Zach, and we thought that we would talk about the bourbon that started it all for me, Blanton's, today.
All right, so we have some Blantons here. Why don't you tell us, like you alluded to, what started all this bourbon fascination?
What started the bourbon fascination? Again, my buddy Charles, we were walking around Charleston, South Carolina one time, and he's like, hey, let's stop in a bunch of liquor stores and see if we can find Blanton's. And we couldn't. But the next time we got together, we cracked a bottle, and he introduced me to Blanton's, and I fell in love with it and kind of started my whole bourbon thing.
All right. And on, you have, I think we talked about 250 bottles, some better than others, but where does Blanton's rank for you on your love of bourbon?
Pretty high. Blanton, I got the nostalgia where it kind of started things. It's a great, very smooth sipper. And over the years, I've collected enough that it's hard to find now, and people have jacked up the price. But yeah, I probably enjoy it, a couple times a month. And it's pretty high on my list.
So tell us a little bit about the background history of Blanton's.
Yeah, so it's a pretty cool story. Single barrel bourbons were not a thing before 1984. This is actually considered the original single barrel. And so Elmer T was the master distiller for Buffalo Trace back then. And right before he retired in 1985, he came up with this idea of doing a single barrel bourbon. And so it's bottled from a single barrel. And so he kind of invented that in 1984 before he retired in 1985. Since then, he unfortunately passed away. But Elmer T. Does have another bottle that we'll sample certainly in a future podcast.
So is all Blanton's all single barrel?
Blanton's is single barrel.
Okay. And are there different varieties of Blanton's, or is it just one style?
There are. There's a bunch of different ones. Obviously, this is the original, and then most commonly what you're going to find is Blanton's Gold or Blanton's Straight from the Barrel. And those are released only on an annual basis, so they're much more difficult to find. I believe the Blanton's Gold is a 103 proof, so it's a little bit higher proof, I believe, and then Straight from the Barrel obviously is a higher proof on top of that.
All right, and this is from Buffalo Trace.
It's Buffalo Trace Distillery, and it actually has a pretty interesting story on who it's named after. If you want me to talk about that,
let's hear it.
There's a gentleman by the name of Albert Bacon Blanton. What an awesome name, right? How great is that name with the middle name Bacon? But anyways, he started at the Buffalo Trace Distillery as a 16-year-old, and he was a desk clerk, and he worked his way all the way up and became president of the distillery from 1921 to 1952. And so he actually used to store what would be his favorite barrels in Warehouse H, which was an all-metal warehouse for aging these barrels. And that's where he stored his favorite selection. And so that's where all the Blanton barrels are actually aged, is in that warehouse. And that's where they decided in honor of Albert Bacon Blanton to name this bottle.
And do you know how Buffalo Trace decides which bourbon will become part of Blanton's?
So exactly how it's chose to be part of Blanton's, no, but I know it's from the center of Warehouse H. And the crazy thing about Warehouse H is it's an all-metal warehouse, which that causes the heat to change significantly. And so that can pull out and introduce some flavors during the aging process that's pretty unique and different from a lot of their other products.
All right, and we can see on the top of the bottle here is a stopper. Tell us about those.
Yeah, so everyone calls them the horsies, and they like to try to collect them. And you have all the different letters that spell out Blanton's, and if you supposedly get the whole collection of them and you send them in, you can actually get a nice little memorial made that you can kind of put your bottle in and have all the horses, and they're all in different positions depending on the letter that go around. The other cool thing about Blanton's is that they give you a lot of information on the bottle that not necessarily a lot of bottles do. So it will specifically tell you when it was dumped from the barrel. Now Blanton's, they actually do a hand dump. most dumps into barrels are machine dumps. But Blanton's, they pick them out and hand dump them, which is kind of unique. They're kind of babied. And also included on here is, they always say stored in warehouse, H, as I said. The rick on where it's stored, rick number 1, and then it tells you the proof that it's at, which is 93 proof on this one. And this is May 12th, 2020 when this one was dumped.
And what's a rick?
So the rick is where they store the actual barrel, where they put it inside the warehouse so that you know where it is. And again, they even labeled the barrel number on here. So this is barrel 727 on this particular Blanton's.
Let's take a little taste test. What's the flavor profile on this for you?
So if I had to say that, it's probably a little citrusy with definitely oak flavor into it. It's a very smooth bourbon. I think you can absolutely enjoy it neat.
All right. And how do you usually drink this? Do you drink it on a cube? Do you drink it neat? Do you drink it with an old fashioned?
I typically drink this with a cube. Again, getting home from work or at night after dinner. That's the typical way I do it.
And you mentioned earlier this is a tougher bottle to get. You've purchased quite a few. You probably have quite a few. What are the ways that you've obtained these?
Yeah. So Blanton's has become really popular. It's actually a pretty crazy story. Initially, it was kind of a flop in the U.S. Not a lot of people purchased it, so they specifically targeted their marketing towards Japan. And in Japan, at the time, they were drinking a lot of scotch, and the parents were, and so the kids coming up wanted to drink something different than their parents. So they were attracted to Blanton's bourbon. And I guess the story goes is that Americans eventually became a little envious of what the Japanese were drinking, which was a Kentucky bourbon called Blanton's. And so it became very popular here now. You can find it in stores occasionally. Usually when you find it, it's marked up. A few years ago, this was a $60 bottle of bourbon. I think now the MSRP, if you find it's 85 or 90. Which is crazy. In 3 or 4 years, it's gone up that much. And if you find it in some stores, they're selling these bottles for $150, $200 for a bottle, just because it's difficult to find. So the best ways to find it, again, if you're going around shopping, looking on the days that it's delivered. When they show up on delivery, they put it on the shelves. They usually limit you to one. You can walk in, grab it at MSRP, which is very reasonable. The other way is to be a member of one of these clubs. You spend enough money at the liquor store in a year, you get invited to join. But on the secondary market, in my mind, this is not a $200 bottle of bourbon. That's paying too much for it.
And then what about the gold?
Yeah, so the gold's even harder to find. The gold MSRP, I believe, is about $150. That is one of my favorites. It's incredible. Really enjoy that one. I got one for Christmas from my brother-in-law. It was a gift. What was funny is my sister-in-law got me a bottle of Blanton's, and then my brother-in-law pulls out and goes, "Oh, I got you one better," and gave me the gold. Love them both. I really appreciate it, but the Blanton's gold is definitely harder to find. And, in my collection, I probably have 10 bottles of Blanton's and 3 bottles of the gold.
And are there other limited editions or special editions besides the gold and obviously the one we're trying?
Yeah, so they're straight from the barrel. I actually just got a bottle of that about a week ago, and that one's really good. Again, I've been collecting these for a number of years. I've only had a couple bottles of that. So those are kind of special. Set them aside. Don't get to drink them very often. I've seen some others that I haven't even sampled. There's some green labels and some black labels, but I've never been able to find one or track one down to sample it.
And for someone new to bourbon, is this one you'd recommend, starting out with?
Absolutely. I believe it's a very smooth, profile. It's not rough to drink. I think that when you're breaking in and easing into bourbon, you don't want something that's going to steer you away. And so with the smoothness of this and the reasonable price on it for what it is, I think it's a great one to start if you can find it.
Yep. All right. Anything else you want to share about your love of Blantons?
No. I mean, again, it's a great bourbon. I appreciate you guys all listening in today, checking us out. Make sure to like and subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and follow us. And we'll see you the next time.